everybody, and welcome back. It's the Next Level Podcast, and I am your host, Dr. Leslie. It has been a little bit of a break. We had some reshuffling last week, but we are back and ready to rock and roll. As you all know, my platform is really about taking you to the next level. Hence the name of the podcast. We want to unlock your highest potential. And really, it's about creating everything that you want. And you can create that. And with all of the experts we have on the show and the inspiring people and sharing our stories and the clients that I see, I want to give you all of the tools, the strategies, and the resources so that you can really create and be masters of your personal creation and unlock everything that you want. Highest potential in every aspect of yourself, your physicality, your mind, and in your connection, right? So it's everything. And we're going to deliver it to you again today. So I have an amazing guest. I was actually on his podcast just a little while ago. And I'm really excited because he is a leader in, well, many things, but particularly in the fact that he's working with men to help them on their personal growth journey. And I love that because, as you know, I've had women on my show that have struggled with their empowerment, and there's been a lot of backlash in the male community about empowering women. And Brendan, my guest today, is going to be sharing with us all about his approach and his community and all the amazing good things that he is helping men to evolve and grow and be their best selves. So thank you so much for being here today.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So let's jump in. You have your podcast, OneLife Podcast.
Mm-hmm. Sure do.
So tell me about how it came to be and what it's all about.
I'm obsessed with self-education, reading, learning, business books, entrepreneurship, fitness. I try to read 50, 60 books a year, podcasts, things like that. And when you read a book, it tells you what it wants to tell you. But when you sit down and talk to someone, you can ask them any question you want, and you can dig deeper. You can work around things. You can get different depth, opposed to just reading what a book says. So that's kind of where it developed. Like, let's find a person I'm very interested in, and let's find out everything I can about that person. A, for selfish reasons, and B, for selfless reasons to help others.
I love that. And it's true. You need to be selfish and selfless on our journey in life because we can't exist in the world by ourselves. We need other people, but really life is an inside job. So I think that's great. So what was the turning point for you in terms of your reading and your personal growth that made you say, I need to now share my information with the world? What was it?
I was already doing it in little shape or form, but we kind of have that self-doubting belief where, who am I to share knowledge? Who am I to help someone else? I'm not successful. I'm not 6% body fat. I'm not. And we forget that, like, everybody relates to someone in a different way at a different time in their life. So it's like, sometimes it's learning to just take action, and you don't have to be perfect to provide value. You don't have to be a doctor to provide value. Everyone can provide value. Everyone's got their own perspective, their own experience. So it's just a matter of, like, getting out of my own head and just taking action.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are the focus or the foci of your podcast? Like you were talking about earlier, your physical, your mindset, a little bit about just everything. How does it all tie together? Is there a particular focus? What are the things that you like to really pinpoint?
So One Life Podcast, one life, live it the way that you want to. You get one life, do it for you. When you're 80, you got regrets. Things you didn't do, things you didn't try, someone else's opinion that stopped you from taking action, scared of failing, all these things that we regret. When I get to the end of my life, I want to have zero regrets. I want to travel. I want to try every business. I don't care if I fail. At least I tried, right? So the One Life represents, like, business, entrepreneurship, fitness, longevity, cold therapy, saunas, self-education, fasting, prolonged fasting, intermittent fasting, just everything that makes you a better version of yourself. 80% of us hate what we do for a living. 74% of us are obese or overweight. Top 3 killers in this country are all diet related. All these crazy stats. 8 out of 10 Americans live paycheck to paycheck. All these crazy stats, and you don't need to be that way. But you and you only, the only person can take action and change that. So that's the gist behind what I'm trying to do.
That's really amazing. And one thing that stood out so much with what you said was you're not afraid of failing. And that is a huge thing. You just kind of like brushed over it like, I'm not afraid of failing. And you just can't continue on. But really, that's a huge part of people being limited in what they can create, as they are so terrified. I mean, fear rules so many people. They're afraid of losing love. They're afraid of being loved. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid of, X, Y, and Z, rejection, whatever. And so how did you come into this, like, not caring, not fearing failure?
Reading. Rich Dad Poor Dad, the first book I've read when I was 21, and it just changed my whole perception on its head.
What was it called?
Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Oh, yes.
Robert Kiyosaki. Because I went to school, I wasn't good at school, didn't get good grades, wasn't good at tests, and you're in school and you think you're going to be a nobody, and everybody thinks you're going to be a nobody, or you're just going to be a regular person because you're not book smart. But when you start to read, you realize it doesn't mean anything in life. Like, if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, yeah, go to school. But 80% of us make the most money who are entrepreneurs. What's that saying? Like, the A students work for the B students, the C students work for the B students. It's taking action. It's everybody procrastinates, perfectionist paralysis. Nobody does anything. And if you just take action, and I like to say, fail fast, fail forwards. It doesn't matter. Failing's only failing when you give up.
That's so true.
So I just realized that if I got an idea, whatever it is, take action. And then stop caring about other people's opinions. And that goes back to what I was saying before, because all you have is regret.
Right. And I will second your comment about the education. I have so much freaking education. I have a doctoral degree, for God's sake, a bachelor's, a master's, and a doctoral degree. And I just turned 40 and loving it, by the way. And I, in my new venture forward, am using virtually none of my education.
But you're reading books to learn what you need to learn now.
Exactly. I mean, what I gained along the way is helpful. Like, I have the foundation, and yes, some of the degrees have helped me at this point. But what I'm creating has nothing to do with my formal education. I've completely gone from, like you were saying, I thought that I needed to do this, and I was a very structured person, and it worked for me for a very long period of time. But now it's not. I'm very entrepreneurial. I'm thinking outside the box, and this is where everything breaks open. This is where the opportunity and the abundance and the limitlessness is. So I completely understand. And yes, reading is so important. So I wanted to ask you, in reading this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, was there a particular thing that you read in it that really transformed you?
It was like, financial education is so much more important than education, because 8 out of 10 Americans are paycheck to paycheck. So that's a barista who works at Starbucks, that's an engineer, that's a doctor. And we get caught up in this rat race. We buy stuff we can't afford to impress people we don't like, and we get stuck. The average car loan is $600 a month over 60 months. I drive a $6,000 Camry paid in cash. I'm $600 richer every month just by having a regular car. I live in you've seen my unit. I live in a frugal unit. Cost me $550 per month. I don't have to go to work tomorrow. I don't have a credit card. I don't have debt. I am completely free. When I make money, it's my money. And that's what I learned.
Very nice.
It's hard to get your head around it because we're pre-programmed the other way. But when you get free, like all my friends, $100,000 in debt, cars they can't afford, houses they shouldn't live in, and they've got to go to work 40 hours a week. I don't have to do anything.
Yes, and I completely agree. There's so much indoctrination. I mean, we are a product of what we are brought up in, right? We are told by society to be a certain way. We're told by our parents. It's everywhere.
Schooling especially.
Oh, there have been...
Color inside the lines. Do what you're told. Don't ask questions back. They teach you to become an employee.
They do. I have 2 kids, and they're in school, and it just like, this is not the way that I had originally planned rearing my children, but it's okay. Everything works out. But it's very shocking the way school systems are so much shaping our children in very limited ways. So very much against what I'm doing. But, there's people like you and I that are helping adults recover. We're recovering from our childhoods in the school system. We're freedom fighters, you and I.
And not caring about your parents' opinion is a hard one.
Yeah.
Because your parents want what's best for you and they want you safe and secure. So if you're an entrepreneur and your parents aren't think that way, they're not for it. They're totally against it. Oh, you need that secure paycheck. You need this, you need that. One of my favorite sayings is be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's entrepreneurship 101. Right. Learn to be comfortable and just figure things out.
That was really, really hard for me because I grew up in a family where there was a lot of scarcity. My parents were born to, their parents were from the Ukraine, so they were immigrants, right? So it was very scarce. Food was always, you had to fight for it, and you didn't know if you were going to have it, and they were farmers. And so I grew up in that mentality where money was hard to get, and you always had to worry about things. And God, it was so hard as an adult. And, that's partly why I ended up going the route that I did. I love medicine, and it was so fulfilling. But there was that conditioning of, yes, that's security. Although when we really look at it, security is an illusion. There are so many illusions. That's a whole other conversation in itself. But the whole 9-to-5 thing, that security is so fake. So really the freedom is in your, believing in yourself and being okay with and uncomfortable with the idea that you have to rely on yourself. You're not going to find the security that you really, really need necessarily. Now, I'm not speaking for everyone, but for a lot of people, if they were honest with themselves, you have to, it takes a lot to firstly switch out of that mentality, but another to really figure out, okay, I'm going to do this, and what are my skill set, and what do I need to learn, and the risk of there maybe not being food.
Yeah, and having a safety net is key. Because when you have a safety net, 6 to 12 months safety net, you have time, you have room to breathe.
Sure.
And when you're always surviving, you don't have room. You don't want to go study something after work. You want to go drink beers to mask your crappy week from your crappy job.
Yeah.
So when you get the safety net, you have some room to breathe, and then you're able to, hey, let's pick up a book and learn graphic design, or let's learn photography, or let's learn. You have the chance to kind of find what you're passionate about and then learn. And I always say, if you work, picking on like barista again, you're making $10 an hour, you're working 40 hours. If you take those 40 hours and you invest in reading or learning a new skill, all of a sudden you're making 20 an hour, 40 an hour, and you continue to do that, there's no cap. Like my photography started me at $50, $100 an hour. Now it pays me $3, $4, up to $1,000 an hour. And I'm constantly trying to find a way of pushing that. And that's reading, learning, having coaches, surrounding yourself with the right people. Or you could be stuck in that job, not getting any better at anything.
You're right. When you are in a 9-to-5, when you're done, it's exhausting. You literally, so many people, they should go to the gym, but they don't. They get home.
That's another side, right? The health suffers too.
It does. I mean, I totally understand. They get home, they're exhausted. Oftentimes they get into this creating a family situation. The kids need your attention. Your spouse needs your attention. Your body needs attention. What do you have left to do if you do manage to work 9-to-5, attend to the children, attend to your spouse, maybe get in a workout, if you can? It's time to go to bed. You're exhausted, you're wiped, your brain is done. You can't read. You don't have any time for pastimes. I mean, it is an unfortunate reality for the majority of people.
And then your environment and your conversations with the people you work with and your spouse is still limited. You're talking, if you're working a regular job, you're talking regular conversations. Yes. You're not talking business. You're not talking books. You're not talking about taking that next level. You're complacent, and everyone around you is complacent. So why would you want change?
Right.
You may not even think it's possible, to be honest.
Many people don't. Many people have sort of the wool pulled over their eyes. They don't know anything different. And there's a lot of people that they maybe are choosing to stay blinded just because, it takes a lot of courage to break out of that box. It takes a lot. Like, it can be disruptive to your entire family. Like, you have to venture. I know with my journey, like, I had to venture all by myself. A lot of people have not the strength for that.
And a lot of people are going to try to hold you back too. And even on the fitness side, you can make your spouse insecure. You can make people around you feel insecure. Yes. If they're drinking, partying, smoking, you want to go the fitness route, it's even harder because everyone's trying to hold you back.
Right. And there's that risk of breaking out, doing something for you, and then disrupting a life. And you could end up having maybe nothing. You know, getting too afraid, having stirred the pot, too afraid, and now you've disrupted your home life and screwed that up. Like I've seen that happen with people too. And then you're caught in the middle and you're like, oh, fuck, what did I do? I've kept my mouth shut. And it's like, well, now it's too late. Now you have to do it, which is good. But that's a whole other, venture.
And even moving forward, it becomes lonely.
Yes.
You becomes isolated when you start to lose weight and feel better and look better and surround yourself with not even different people, just by yourself. And you do that with business, you become isolated.
Yes.
You know that saying that's lonely at the top? Like it's lonely being an entrepreneur.
It is. I know. It can be very lonely, but I strongly believe, having kind of been on the other side of what I've learned, you have to embrace it, and that's a journey you have to go on your own. It's the badge of honor that you get. That's like your credentials for being an entrepreneur, I believe, is being able to go it on your own and being steadfast and honoring yourself and saying, no, I'm going to do this. You have to have that kind of strength and that sort of discipline and that faith and belief in your ability. And really self-esteem. Like you have to be solid in who you are to be entrepreneurial. And it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, and then realize that no one's going to knock at your door and present you an opportunity. It's Dan Panner. As soon as you take a full 100% responsibility of your life, as soon as you can make change. Yeah. You can twiddle your thumb. My parents didn't teach me how to eat right, or they didn't teach me this, or I didn't. You've got to find it for yourself. And it's never been easier with phones and technology. Mm-hmm. And AI has just made it 10 times easier.
So how would you recommend, from your experience and your reading, would you, I guess, recommend, what would be your recommendation or suggestion to help someone break out of their 9-to-5 conditioned matrix, if you will, life?
Easy.
Easy? Let's hear easy.
So Brian Tracy says this very well. He goes, if every time you're in a car and you listen to an audiobook, every 2 years is like doing a degree at university.
Every 2 years?
Every 2 years. So think about how many hours you're in the car every day. I get 3 to 4 hours of audiobooks in every single day. And I'm not saying in a cocky, arrogant way. It's literally what happens.
Yeah.
So the average American reads less than 1 book a year. The average CEO reads 60 books a year. So if you want to grow, you want to better yourself, you need to get educated. But I don't have time. It's $16 for an audiobook. You listen in the car on the way to work, listen on the way home. You go to the gym, stick it in your ears. You're editing photos, stick it in your ears. You go for a walk, stick it in your ears. You're at the dog park, stick it in your ears. Start consuming content. It will change your life.
Okay. Top 5 books you'd recommend for someone who's wanting to break out.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
It is a good one.
It's People Skills. It's my favorite book. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. E-Myth for the able to structure your business, step out of your business and allow it to run automatic. There's so many.
Think and Grow Rich. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, Napoleon Hill. That's really good.
Napoleon Hill. That's a good one. Actually, I really like the first chapter. I think it was when he talks about the 6 steps about creation. So, you want to visualize the amount of money. You want to think about how you're going to do it because nothing is for free. The plan that you're going to get there. And I think there's another piece to it. But you want to visualize. You want to say it morning and night. And you want to envision, like see yourself having it already and the feeling attached to it. That was a very powerful exercise for me.
Yeah.
Love that one.
Something I just want to add on that is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's my favorite quote. It comes from that book. And it's to read and not to do is really not to read. To know and not to do is really not to know at all. So they always say knowledge is power. Applied knowledge is power. It doesn't matter what you know unless you apply it. Everyone knows how to eat right, but everyone's fat. Everyone knows how to save money, but everyone's broke. Knowing and doing is 2 different things. So I'm a big fan of 50% reading, learning, and then 50% of getting out and applying it. And that applies to everything.
Okay, so you do a 50-50 split.
Yeah, like give or take. But I mean, you could, I was a personal trainer for 8 years. I had a client who was 450 pounds. He knew more about dieting than I did. Had a six-pack, he was 450 pounds. What do you think's more important, knowing or doing?
Right. Yeah.
And that's always stuck with me.
That's interesting. I find in the way that I've created, I need a lot more preparation time. See, I'm the way I do life, I spend a lot more time being and cultivating and honing my knowledge base and my strategy. So maybe it's because I'm a chick. Maybe it's because I don't know, have an intellectual mind because of all the academics I did. I don't know. But I find that I need to spend a lot of time assimilating, planning, preparing, and then my execution is on fucking point.
But you execute, that's the difference.
And it's quick, and I just get it done, and it just magically happens. Like I feel like it's like 90% almost sometimes preparation, 10% execution, but that 10% is like on point.
But you execute, and that's the word.
It's true. Yes.
And everybody plans and procrastinates and perfects and this, and they take zero action. So you got to take some type of action. Yes. I mean, Tony Robbins says it best. As soon as you have something that you want to implement, you take action immediately. That day or the next day, you need to take some form of action.
Yes, and that action can just be buying the book. Go buy the audiobook, everyone listening. Just one single step. That's all it is. You can just buy it. It doesn't have to be like, going to the bank and getting a loan for your business. Like the first step is getting prepared for that, right?
Yeah, it's taking something, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. Just like a podcast.
That's true. Yes.
Take action.
Yes.
And you learn more by taking action than you ever do planning and the rest of it.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. In all my years practicing and preparing, as a nurse practitioner, you practice medicine as an NP. I worked with a lot of medical doctors, and they taught us when I was training was when you're learning procedure, like because I did a lot of minor surgical procedures in office. They said you watch one, you do one, you teach one. That's how they did it. There was no like you study, you do. No, they're just like fuck it. You just watch it, then you do it, and then you're going to teach someone because that's how you. Yeah. You don't have time. Like you don't have time with everything you have to learn, especially in medicine. It's like, nope, you got to have a very, very focused ability to absorb information. And then you have to get the kinesthetic right away, right after that. And then you teach someone because being the teacher, you can see how they screw up and it helps you reinforce. And it's just like you do it back to back.
I'm so glad you said teaching because if you can't teach something, you don't know.
Right.
I'm a 100% believer in that.
Yes.
And when I've gone to teach something and I can't explain it properly, I don't know it properly. But ask me about certain things, I can teach you very well because that means I know it.
That's very true. Yes, absolutely.
If you can't teach it, you don't know it.
Yeah, I have, although I have heard this saying, and I don't necessarily think I agree with it, it is those who can't do teach. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's like, I've heard that. Now this is back in Canada, and Canada's like a little, they've got their culture, right? So this was something that was back there, where a lot of opportunities for business are much, much more limited. Like to be entrepreneurial and to really be successful financially is much more difficult in Canada just because of the nature, the taxes and just the limited opportunities just in general.
Same as Australia, yeah.
So it seems like you almost have to become a teacher. Like there's a lot of business consultants or there's a lot of people that work for the government who advise small businesses and that sort of thing. But, it's, I don't think it's necessarily a measure of your success or not. But in the context in which we were talking about, it really teaching does help us to keep us honest too. Like when I have people coming into the clinic, like when I had my practice and I had students coming in, it really helped. Teaching kept me honest. It kept me humble. It kept me, and when I mean honest, I just mean it keeps me in touch with why I'm doing what I'm doing, the processes, and not allowing myself to deviate from what is right, because it's so easy to kind of cut corners and not where it would ever jeopardize anybody, but just like in paperwork or this, or like you can become so burnt out in medicine. And so you can just like maybe not give that patient the extra time to communicate or educate. And so when you're, talking to a student who's like, hey, why do you do X, Y, and Z? You're like, oh, well, because this and that and that and that, that and that. And then you're like, oh yeah, shit, I should tell the patient these pieces. It might help optimize their outcomes or whatever. And so the teaching kind of, that's what I mean, keeping us honest, keeps us like on our toes and like immersed in the literature and continuing to give and provide our best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. Cool. So I want to hear more about your OneLife Men's group, because this is like, again, as I was talking at the very beginning, and Lana, shout out to her. She's engineering today. She was on my podcast. There's women are rising up and we're becoming empowered. And this is a whole female evolutionary movement that's very new and interesting. And we're all trying to figure it out. And some of the concerns that I've had expressed from some of the women that are wanting to, that have kind of stepped up is they're challenged in the dating scene, particularly here in Vegas, because, we've got a big mix of people here, of men that can really appreciate a woman's evolution and her commitment to her personal development and wanting to be her best. And so I'm always fascinated to learn about men who are committed to their evolution and what that looks like, because there's lots of women who are looking for great men out there who are focused on themselves and who are secure in themselves and who love themselves and who can stand by a powerful, evolving woman. So share with me a little bit about your men's community and what you guys focus on.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like a guy has got to be go-getter. He's got to be driven. He's got to be like self-educating. He's got to be trying to be the best version of himself to even align with a woman like that, right? Because she's not going to want to be with him. And if a guy's in that position, the woman isn't, and vice versa. You kind of like need to add value to one another. But my guys group. So I put a guys group together, OneLife Men. It's a Facebook page. 3.5 months ago, started with 4 of us. I reached out to 3 other. I don't like to say they're friends. They're friends who I didn't have anything to do with.
Okay.
So I would say like more like associates. What do you say?
Acquaintances.
Or acquaintances.
Acquaintances. I feel like is such a like slap in the face though. Like, it's a word that you don't want to say. Like if I'm introducing, this is my acquaintance, it'd be like,
yeah,
bitch,
I mean,
we just went out to lunch. You're calling me an acquaintance. It's like almost offensive, but at the same, like behind their back, you'd be like, well, they're an acquaintance of mine. I don't know what the politically correct.
Probably more of a friend without any depth.
Okay.
So nothing too close.
We have to come up with, I have actually, this is a side note, I'm digressing here, but I have a dictionary I'm creating. It's called Leslie's Dictionary of Made Up Words. So I will come up with a word for this new sort of friend without depth. We might come up with one together, because there has to be a new word that substitutes acquaintance, because it just doesn't work.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
So I work for myself. I love what I do. The money's decent. But I was very just lonely, to be honest. Completely lonely. Wasn't really looking forward to anything. I mean, I fly in helicopters all the time. I travel. I get to do all this cool stuff, but there's still this huge thing missing. And I was like, I'm just going to reach out to a couple like friends who I thought had their own lives and their own friendships and their own thing going on. And that's the biggest thing I'm realizing, that people who you think are busy and have got a lot of friends actually don't. It's actually quite sad how isolated and lonely we all are, and I think guys might be even worse. So I reached out. We did this hike. We went to Boulder City Railway hike. We ended up hiking like 4.5 hours, and everybody just got on a house on fire. Everybody talked. Everybody, like, have you ever heard that saying?
No.
It's maybe it's a strange saying. Like,
maybe.
Everyone got along really well.
Okay.
And we talked ideas, and we talked business, and we talked books, and we talked everything. We didn't talk girls. We didn't talk weather. We didn't talk politics, religion. We talked about stuff that matters. And not that women don't matter, but it wasn't anything like bad about. Yeah. It was just odd ideas. And I was like, oh, this went really well. Like, we should do this again. Did a dinner, 7 people rocked up, and then it just grew. And there's 128 guys in the group in the space of 3.5 months.
Wow.
I put events on. We do martial arts. We do cold plunges. We do yoga, meditation. It's so cool to have like-minded people where we get together. And I have another guy coaching me now who's retired. He's our age. He's retired. I'm getting into coaching now, helping out some of the guys.
Nice.
Everyone's got their own unique skill set, and everyone's coming together, and everyone's just making each other accountable and growing and getting better. There's some guys doing cold ice baths now without me having to even tell them, just knowing that I do it.
Wow.
So it's just built this community, and it's just, I now have friends. I now have a lot of close friends. I now have people I can rely on. People can rely on me. It's just blown up. I hosted my first event 2 months ago.
Okay.
4-day event, put on a free event. I utilized my podcast connections. So the event was, we did breath work, we did Krav Maga, we did yoga, meditation, cold plunge, a whole bunch of different things. I had now, June 10th, I have my next event coming up. It's even bigger. Everyone's just volunteering their time. I have a business coach this time. It's like an 8-hour event done for free for these guys with everybody volunteering their time because everybody loves what I'm trying to do here.
That's amazing. So your community has really come together to put on an event to help feed each other.
Yeah, between the podcast and the OneLife Men, I'm doing OneLife Community, which is females, because the females are so supportive of what I'm doing.
I
like what
me
you said.
too. Like I'm right on your, whenever it pops up on social media, I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. I love it. Like I really am.
You're this true fan, and there's so many females like you doing the same thing who love it.
Yeah.
Because they know the guys need this.
They do so badly.
And guys
It's
are so
great.
isolated. And I always say, if you have a fight with a spouse, like you and I are together, we're dating, we get having a fight, 2 seconds later, you're on the phone to your best friend. A guy's not doing that.
Right.
He's taking on the chest, he's sitting there by himself. Suicide rates are so high. Like I literally met a lady today through a business, and I was telling her about the group. She's like, this is amazing. I said, yeah, suicide. And then she's like, yeah, my brother committed suicide. I was like,
Wow.
it just shows there is a need there. And she goes, I know 3 or 4 people who needed to go to this group. Like,
I have someone actually who just texted me today, a guy who's in my, dancing community, and he's like, I just split up with my so-and-so and I need to meet people. He's kind of new to the area. And I'm like, oh my God, I've sent him a couple of places, but this is perfect. I'm going to send him your way. And I mean, this is so huge, and I'm so excited and so proud, and really any way that I can be involved. I know you sent me a request for the community, which I'm so excited to, see how I can help and be involved. I mean, because this is really important. I want to be as big of a support, and however I can be too for
Appreciate
your events.
that.
Yeah, please let me know too.
and I keep saying it's not about me. I'm just the one to put it together.
Right.
If anyone's got anything they want to host, if anyone needs business opportunity, anyone needs support with anything, it's for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for me.
Right.
I literally just the one who stepped up, showed some vulnerability, and started it. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing I found is I had friends in town, and I thought they had their own lives. I thought they had their own friends. I thought they were too busy to hang out or don't do anything. Realizing that every single one of them was doing the exact same thing as I was doing. Wow. Sitting at home, not doing anything, losing their identity, playing father, playing husband, not having boys' time, thinking they're different because they don't drink and smoke and gamble, especially in Vegas. And then you start to realize there's other people out there who eat right, who go to the gym, who like cold therapy, who like reading books, who want to be the best version of themselves. But you might, I don't know if females are the same, but you feel pretty isolated when you're like that. And you start to feel like you just don't fit in. Mm-hmm. And that's when now I'm trying to bring those people together, realizing there is a place where we can come.
Right. And I think actually the opposite is necessary in the female community. I grew up very much without the female camaraderie. My mother was very independent. She was entrepreneurial. Like in the small town we grew up in, she was doing business. Like this was in the 80s. Like I'm an 80s baby, early 80s baby. I mean, she was against the grain. So I never really saw that female camaraderie. I spent a lot of time on my own, sitting in contemplation and creating and all the things. And so I understood how men did life, right? Never understood the emotionality of women. I didn't understand how they would band together and like the mean girl backstabbing bullshit. Like I grew up in a small town, moved to a suburb when I was going into 6th grade. And wow, it was literally like taking a hillbilly and putting them in Beverly Hills. Like I even looked like the part. So it was really shocking to me, and I did not understand the emotionality. I think women could use a little bit more alone time before they come together and they start getting on the phone, in fact. And so, you know, having more time to be quiet with your thoughts and taking maybe a little bit more responsibility and self-reflection is needed for women, instead of just hopping on the phone right away. It's kind of like the opposite thing that needs to happen to balance out the masculine and
balance
women.
between the two.
For sure. Yeah, I know some women that are just like immediately on the phone. I never understood that. For me, it's like I will sit and sit and sit, and I'll be like, oh shit, you know, it probably would have been better if I called someone at some point, because then I could have got a different perspective instead of me, you know, fucking up along the way and not figuring out what to say. It's like, okay, like 3 days ago I should have called you instead of waiting to my hair appointment and then we're all chatting together there, you know. So yeah, I get that. But that's really great.
And what I'm finding is the more I do this, the more I realize why guys are the way they are.
Oh, share.
And it's because we look at our father figures, right? My father is 78. He was a firefighter. He worked in the hospital. He's just your man's man. And I've seen him cry once in his lifetime. He's always been the provider. He doesn't show emotions. Amazing guy, and then your movie stars, every role model, every athlete, everybody is this alpha male who doesn't show any vulnerability, who's just always put this persona on, who's like, I've got it together. Don't worry, I've got it. Don't worry, I've got this. And you realize that like males are human beings too. And I'm not saying we're soft or anything, but I mean, it's okay to be a human being.
Right.
And it's okay to show vulnerability, and it's okay to reach out for help. But I realized, like, I'm 43, and I realized I never did this because I never saw this. Mm-hmm. So you got to kind of realize what you're doing to kind of change it, I guess. Does that make sense?
Of course, absolutely. We don't know what we don't know. And so we're just products of what we're seeing. And
we don't know what we don't know. It's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. And, you know, my heart goes out to men because you know, as women, we want and we love so much when a man can be vulnerable. And guys are like, they don't want to see a guy cry and blah, blah. Yes, it shows that you're fucking human. Yeah. It tells us that you can relate when we as women get stormy and emotional and all the things, and we can see you have emotion. That is a way to relate. It's incredibly bonding. And we too want to be there for our spouse. Women, we don't want to feel like we're the emotional ones all the time and we need to be saved and we're just these delicate things, because we're not. We deal with a lot of shit in life. And it would be nice to see a little bit of balance in our male counterparts. You know, we want to, and we have so much that we can contribute, and we want to be of support. And that really is, again, like you're saying, being like standing by each other and being able to, we want to be able to lift each other up. And there are men and women for a reason. We complement each other. We need to allow ourselves to complement each other. Women can be badasses and really support men in ways that they may not have in their own toolbox, just like it's the opposite. So the bridging is, you know, men being able to be vulnerable and share a little bit, and women can step up and harness their more masculine side and have the back of their man, and however that looks.
And that's hard. Like when I first started the group and I started actually having meaningful conversations, like, this is uncomfortable.
Really?
This is super uncomfortable.
Like what? Is there one specific you remember?
I just remember I was talking to my friend Ray, and we just started talking about the group and how guys need this. And it just like, wow, this is actually hard to even talk about, because I've always just been this 220-pound guy who's been in shape, who's just got it together. And then you start to realize, like, it's okay to be a human being. It's okay, you have your ups and downs. And so it just, I'm definitely, like, obviously I'm better at it now, and I'm going to keep getting better at it, but it was hard at first.
That's good.
And that's what everyone's going through.
And it's just like you said, you need to be uncomfortable to grow, to be better. And that's uncomfortable for many men.
Exactly,
Being
right?
vulnerable is incredibly uncomfortable, just like it's uncomfortable for women to step up and have boundaries and not have to pick up the phone and call a girlfriend and be like, I got to swallow my emotions and like deal with it inside and ground myself and okay, how are we going to proceed? How am I going to proceed? It's challenging. It's growth. That's growth.
And emotional control, which is everything. Especially as an entrepreneur, especially in a relationship. Emotional control is everything.
I had an amazing lunch conversation today. Of course, it was like 3-hour lunch with a dear friend of mine and coach. He's a coach to some very, high-end clientele. And we were talking about this, the emotional intelligence and the need to not be reactive, especially when someone elicits a reaction in you, like an emotion. If you feel hurt, if they say something that hurts you, it was so cool because he said, shame on you for making me feel that way. And it was interesting because we want to own our emotions and our reactions, but the same way, it's like if you do something to deliberately hurt me, shame on you, but I'm not going to react. I'm not going to show you. It's not about hiding. The point he was making was about being so composed and aware and comfortable in your skin to just observe it and be, okay, I don't have to react right now. This is my emotion, his or her expression. I'm having a reaction. I can observe it, but I don't have to react.
I like
that is enormous control.
I like that a lot.
Right? And then when whatever's done is done, you go, you process, however that is, and then you drop it and you move on. But in that moment, like I know the power of that. I used to be very, very reactive, and that's something I've harnessed more and more. But I'm like, to not even have one reaction, to not give them anything. And the thing is, that's also, not only is it a testament of how strong you are inside and being able to be an observer of your life and non-reactive, which is powerful, you also take away that other person's power and they don't have control over you. And you can completely turn the entire situation around.
I like that. I've learned that in business, like where I've said stupid things back and it's made things 1,000 times worse. And
please tell me what. What did you say?
Just when you act on emotion, right?
Yes.
Like this is years ago. Someone say something, you snap back.
Yes.
It just made things so much harder to fix.
It does, and you can almost irreparably damage.
Yeah, or it's made it something slightly stressful, extremely stressful.
Yes.
And another way I look at it too is too many people talk about bad things over and over. Mm-hmm. So an example would be if I leave my wallet on the car seat right now and my car gets broken into, it gets stolen. 2 different ways that I can approach it. Hey, I shouldn't have left my wallet on the seat. I'm never going to do that again. Or I can go tell the next 100 people that my car got broken into and the world's against me. What do you think's got a better outcome?
Right.
Take your 5 minutes, take your hour, whatever you need to do to decompress, deal with it.
Right.
Just move on.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it every day. There's no point.
Right. Exactly.
Same relationship, same breakup, whatever it is. Don't make yourself the victim because everyone's going to treat you like the victim.
Yeah, it's right. And I'm a firm believer too in, again, the power of your mind. Harnessing the power of your mind is really what my specialty is. And what your story is, what you tell yourself, how you interpret the events is really what you are creating. Because we know this, our mind will see what we tell it. Like, I remember this one time, my brother, when we were growing up, he could not find, he made some French fries. He could not find the ketchup bottle. He's like, where's the ketchup bottle? I can't find the ketchup. Where is the ketchup bottle? I swear to God, I was literally standing there laughing my fucking brains out. It was like a table like this. It was on the island. I was standing at the other end. He was here. The ketchup bottle was right in front of me. And he's literally storming around. I can't find the ketchup. Where's the ketchup? Yeah. And I'm literally laughing. I'm like, how can you not see it? He stormed around for like 3 minutes. And he finally just stopped because he saw me laughing. I totally interjected his emotional state. He snapped out of it. And then he literally looked down. He's like, oh my God. And he was so embarrassed and humiliated. But I mean, it was a perfect example of our mind will see what we focus on. That is so powerful. And so if you say you're the victim and you tell all the people that I broke this broken, blah, 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 you actually will only see and experience that story.
What you think about is what you become. Like
Yes.
Zig Ziglar type of it.
And
Even Oprah says the same thing.
Yes, and it's real. I see it every day. In that little ketchup bottle incident, thank you, brother, for, this, I humiliated you again, sharing it with everybody, the whole world, but thank you. I mean, it's a perfect example of what your story is and what you're telling yourself your mind focuses on. It's the brain power that we have, the power of our minds and our emotions is literally, I feel, the crux of our ability to achieve. Yes, you need the knowledge base, right? But you need to have that control over your mind, I feel, to be able to take whatever knowledge you learn and then be able to apply it, right? Because what do you think is what stops people from actually applying what they learn?
I think failure.
Yeah, right? Which is the one thing that you life hacked right from the beginning.
Other people's opinions, failing. A lot of people are scared of succeeding too.
Yes.
And that's a weird one, and I've experienced it some part, but yeah, it's weird to pull ahead. It's weird to actually do things you didn't think was possible, right? But I don't know, I've just kind of like nothing surprises me anymore.
Oh, yeah.
When I just started printing my photography prints, I've got in a shop 2 days later just by taking action.
Yeah.
Or I could be like, oh, yeah, I like to sell prints one day and I'm going to... Two different ways of going about it.
Right.
It's literally hanging in a shop right now. And I started it 2-3 days ago.
That's amazing.
So that's that's what you can get done.
And I think the reading is also not only just the knowledge base in itself, it helps the reinforcement you're building. I think it can be very just inspiring when you're dedicated. Like there's a lot of passion you have to have in you to be so dedicated to your personal development, right? Like you have to harness the power of your desire, your passion to keep it going, then to, take what you're learning and apply it. So sometimes people just don't have desire.
No. Because it's easy to stick your head in the sand and just expect things, especially with social media, instant gratification. Mm-hmm. How do you get a six pack? How did you get lean for when you're competing, right?
Yeah.
4 months of strict dieting.
Right.
How did I just drop 20 pounds in 5 weeks? 5 weeks of eating perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. You got to put the effort in. You got to put the reps in.
Right. So what is your opinion of being able to spark desire or passion in someone?
I think find what you love to do. So there's a saying, if you suddenly had $100 million in the bank tomorrow and you buy your parents a car and you buy a Lamborghini and you travel and eventually you get bored, what do you do? I would have a podcast. I would do photography. I would still do the men's group. I would still do what I'm doing. Therefore, I know that's my desire and that's what I'm meant to be doing because I would do it for free. That's
amazing. And it's well said. And I love that because I'm doing that as well. I have so much fulfillment in my life. I have so much joy. I have so much more that I want to do and experience. But right now, I'm doing everything. I'm filled. I wake up every single day full of passion and desire and drive.
And purpose.
And it's because I chose to dedicate and rearrange my entire fucking life from one that was very, very different and going in a completely different direction to one that feeds my purpose and what really excites me. And so when you are aligning with that, it feeds the passion, and then the passion is just there, and that's your new default. But exiting that, that space where people are, that's, you have to, like you said, first is getting clear on what it is that you would do. And a lot of people don't even know clarity. They don't have the clarity of what that would look like.
Don't really stop and think about it. Mm-hmm. And that's when meditation comes in handy, or just being disconnected.
Right.
And like, as much as I love audiobooks and things like that, sometimes I'll drive and no phone, no music, no books. Like I'm learning guitar, I love music, but you just got to switch off.
Yes.
Because when you switch off, all of a sudden you're up here and you're in your mind and you're actually aware of what you're thinking and where you want to go and what's going on, what's good, what's bad. But we're so distracted 24/7.
That's true.
So it's like sometimes it's very important to stop, however you do it, and take time for yourself and think about things.
Yeah, and meditation is so important, but I've stopped using that word. It's actually becoming a profanity in my wheelhouse of words because so many people have told me I've tried meditation, it doesn't work. So when I've tried and sell them on different ways of meditating, they huff and puff. They already have this negative association. Meditation, love, spirituality. There's a couple of other words that are just tainted. Like it's just they've been shit on, it seems, and people just don't want anything to do with it because they're like, it's too charged with whatever, and I don't want to do it. So I try to use more softer words like getting quiet.
Quiet is the
still,
perfect, yeah.
Contemplation, but I really like just getting quiet.
Yeah,
and you can do that.
Perfect way of putting it.
Right?
Just get quiet.
Let's just get quiet.
No distractions.
Right.
Get quiet.
The M word, meditation. It's a swear word. I can't say it anymore. And it was like the main part of I meditated all the time. Let's all meditate. I was doing Zoom meditations every day, like on Facebook.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it's quiet time with Dr. Leslie.
Yeah, you don't need to be up on a hill, fingers up, legs crossed.
You can do one breath stillness. You can be in the car. There's so many ways you can be actively still.
Just get quiet. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It was so cool. All right. Well, we've wrapped up. This is an hour. Pretty much. We got through a lot of material. Thank you so much for being on the show. Where can we find your group?
OneLife Men's group on Facebook is the main platform.
Okay.
And I have OneLife community on Facebook, which is males and females. The reason I started that is I had so many supportive females, and I needed a platform where the girls can get behind this.
Yeah.
So now I have 2 platforms.
That's awesome. And the OneLife podcast?
OneLife podcast, YouTube is the best place to find it.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you again so much for being on the show. And we will see you all next time.